You make such a good point about the military. You know, I think a lot of people in the military felt as though their hands were tied during the Obama administration. And to credit that administration, they were trying something different. They were trying diplomacy. They were trying not to use force. This is an administration that's showing that it's willing to use American hard power and to deliver it in the form of bombs like we just saw. I want to ask you, though, about Vladimir Putin and that relationship and what it is saying with President Trump now embracing NATO, because most of us know that Putin considers NATO sort of poking him in the eye. Putin doesn't like NATO. He doesn't like NATO being strong. So I just want to ask you, what does this say? My
feeling is I think Putin's a bad guy. I think he's been a bad guy for a long, long time. And maybe I grew up in the era of the Soviets were our enemy. And
I think most foreign policy experts would agree with you.
And I think to a certain extent he's not behaved on the world stage. He basically he's not been afraid of the Obama administration. And I think to a certain extent all the rhetoric about we're going to sit down, we're going to negotiate, he's my pal, Tillerson being his big pal. The guy is basically a dictator, and he has total control of his country. And there's 3 or 4 others on the world stage, and we have to show that we have the same strength and are willing to use the same tactics that they are, and I think that's a positive thing. NATO has been a very important ally to us, and I always felt the arguments that Trump made about NATO and what they contributed was not with the best information. I think he's now gained more information. So I don't see any of this as negative. I see this as very positive. I think the most important thing is your conversation with Dave Stockman.
I teed up. I was going to ask you about it, but go ahead.
Dave and I served side by side in the Reagan administration, and obviously had some arguments in the course of those days. But I think the one thing...
You don't say.
I think the one thing that Dave made very, very clear, and I think that's what we have to deal with, is there isn't enough money. There isn't enough money to do all the things we want to do in government. And that shortfall, we've lived with it, we've moved on it, and Dave's now always been a deficit hawk at this point in time. But I think the most important thing he said is that the problems ahead, when this president and this Congress come back, everything is tough sledding. It's not just the Obamacare, which is obviously a very difficult task, but every single other item at this point in time. And even though Republicans have majorities in the House and the Senate, the problem with the stupid Senate rules that we just had changed to get Gorsuch through is the minority in the Senate gets to basically govern. You can have 52 seats, and anytime you lose 2 seats, you don't have it. Anytime they want to filibuster, it takes 60, which we don't have. And the House, we're always going to have some defects. If everybody was on the same page as the president, then there'd be no problems, but they're not.
But Ed, Trump's most loyal supporters might not be bothered by the just shift in tone on what we've done with Syria, what we've done in terms of taking a bigger role on the world stage, but they do expect to see movement on the economy and jobs and getting wages boosted. And if they can't get something done on repealing Obamacare and tax cuts and tax reform, that's going to be a problem.
If the economy is not better in 2018, and those people out there in Pennsylvania and Michigan and elsewhere don't feel that he's lived up to his promises on jobs, then they're going to pay a heavy price in the 2018 election. Historically, as you know, the midterm elections are always a disaster for the president's party. We always hope it's different. But again, you know, we're very optimistic in the Senate because there's 25 Democrat senators up there. But the reality is we've got a long, hard...
Yeah, but they also promised tax reform by August, didn't get it. They
backed off that. They're clearly backing off that.
They backed off it, but they made that promise.
They made lots of promises. The critical thing is you're not going to get tax reform. Is going to take a long time. What you probably could get, and you should get, is the business tax reform. And if you did that, that would be a very positive.
I'm going to get in here in a second. I just want to get to this because CIA Director Mike Pompeo, in his first speech since taking over the agency, slammed WikiLeaks. Listen to this.
WikiLeaks walks like a hostile intelligence service and talks like a hostile intelligence service. It has encouraged its followers to find jobs at the CIA in order to obtain intelligence. It's time to call out WikiLeaks for what it really is: a non-state hostile intelligence service often abetted by state actors like Russia.
Again, Ed, this goes right to Trump is a puppet of Putin. Hooey.
Well, he's not a puppet of anybody. I mean, I think.
But you know, that's the left narrative.
Sure, I mean, you know, the left's not happy. The right's probably not going to be happy in a short period of time. I think the critical thing here is he's got 4 years in the job. 100 days is always a silly measurement. I teach a course in American presidencies, and you know, Roosevelt did a lot in 100 days, and a few others have, but the real measurement here is where are you at the end of the first year, the second year, and the fourth year, and that's how you get measured historically. And this president's got big, big difficulties ahead, and my sense is he's going to provide the leadership to do it.
Lee, real quick.
And I think we know that voters are fickle, right? 1 in 4 of the voters that voted for Donald Trump had voted for Barack Obama. So they voted for him really thinking that he was going to do things totally different. I think a lot of people are getting disillusioned that they're seeing that D.C. isn't changing. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out.
The frustration is you can put someone new in the Oval Office, and obviously, hopefully, they can lead the country in a different direction. But the congressional system is broken down, and we're in this partisan environment, and maybe it's the experience of 50 years of having watched this and been a part of it. There is no bipartisanship anymore. It's basically trench warfare. You got two parties that are opposite poles apart, and you're not going to get things like health care and other things unless you can find some bipartisan solutions.
Yeah, I look at Washington and those lawmakers when we were down there this past week, and I kept walking by the Capitol building saying that is the palace of inaction and inertia. And I always think about those lawmakers who fill those halls and say, make me hate you a little more.
It's pretty hard.
Is it possible?
It's pretty hard to get above a 15% approval rating, which is where our 70% are today.
And take a 2-week vacation when you're not getting things done.
That,
right? Imagine if you did that.
I know, I'm going to run for Congress.
I'm
This sounds great. I mean, this is the best job in the world. Don't need to do anything in
vacation. Do that. The vast majority of members of Congress took a pay increase to go there, so it's not like you'll have to take a cut. So. I think just one last point. I mean, I think leading a delegation to go visit NATO, as the speaker's doing right today, when you've still got all this big agenda ahead of you, they ought to be sitting down and getting this thing moving forward. And these members got beat up pretty bad when they went home to talk about Obamacare and what have you.
Good.
They're going to come back, and you're going to see not a happy campers.
They need some salve for those wounds inflicted by the American people who are dissatisfied. Ed Rollins.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
we
very
love
much.
you so much.